How you doing today, guys? Let's do a self-imposed challenge. Nobody's challenged me to this, but I was just curious. How cheap can you go to sharpen your knife? And of course, you can use sandpaper. There is 100 different ways to skin a cat and still end up with a skinned cat. Okay? So this is just going to be another option. Super cheap. Let's see if this equipment is any good. I have no experience with this. This is a Harbor Freight $2.99 sharpening stone. I found myself in Harbor Freight before, seen these stones, never ever was interested or wanted to mess with them. And you see the combination sharpening stone, $2.99. Okay, I also picked up this. This is going to be for another video. $2.99 for a pull-through sharpener, which is normally a big no-no, and on this video, when I make this video, I will explain why. But possibly this is not complete junk, because the V in this one is actually little ceramic rods. So maybe, that's going to be a maybe. But that video today is not about that. So $2.99, you normally get what you pay for in life. I am not expecting much, but in theory you can sharpen a knife with sandpaper, and we might do that on another video. Sharpen a knife with sandpaper. You can sharpen them on a smooth rock that you find in the woods. So let's get to it. The one bad thing on all this packaging here, it is a combination. It says it has a medium and a fine grit, but it never says if it's the dark gray or the light gray, which is which, and it's definitely not labeled anywhere. So I'm not expecting much. It doesn't feel like a terrible stone though. And just by rubbing it and looking at it, I'm guessing that this darker is the coarser, and then they would call that a medium, and then that would be the fine. But, you know, that's very subjective. We're knife nuts and really crazy about sharpening. Even their fine is going to be pretty rough looking. So we're doing this on the cheap. Again, you get your rag. I've got a bucket of water over here. Doing that just to keep my stone still, right? And also we might get a little bit of a slurry going on here. So I'm going to take my stone, I'm going to dunk it in this water, and I'm going to, oh, it's sizzling. Maybe we should have soaked this stone for a little bit. That's kind of neat. Can you hear it? I don't know if this is a wet stone or not, but most stones you can get them wet. And I like water better than oil. Oil's very messy, and I'm not a big fan of honing oils. That should be good. We don't need to soak the whole stone. But it looks like you certainly could. You can still see bubbles coming out of there. Kind of neat. The point is, we just want our steel to slide smoothly across that. Kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit here. Have an open L to test on. So this might be a good video to follow along with at home. And I do love my open L. Hopefully you can see all that patina going on there. This is very dull. Haven't sharpened it in a while. They still cut well because they're so thin. So here's some paper. Let me prove that will not cut anything. Very rippy, teary. Here, this might show you a little better. I actually like grip down on it. And here. Not catching at all. Nothing at all. It's dull. Now keep in mind, this is probably 1095 or something very similar. This is the carbon steel, and open L I don't believe is real open with what they use. If we have time, depending on how long we want this video to go, I might try to do this 154 CM blade. Carried this for a little bit. Review coming on this knife. The Wilkins gripped full size. And then I also have some MDF scrap here. and we might load that up with some rouge, again, depending on time. We're doing it on the cheap. I want to bring a dull knife to sharp. I might even put it on some of this softer pine to see how it does for that. Although I've always heard a lot of people have good luck just loading it on raw MDF. So let's get started here. Again, using my technique. You guys know, you've already seen that video maybe. We're just going to see how well it does. And hopefully that's not like, oh shoot. I don't really need to do this, but I should show you guys just to show you if you are following along at home, if maybe this is one of your first freehand experiences. How did I forget that? The Sharpie trick. Do you guys know about the Sharpie trick? Probably most of you do. You see we're cutting through that patina. Already starting to get the edge on there. Take your Sharpie, put it right on your edge. Okay. And now that is going to tell. Are you guys in the shadow? Can you see that? Set Sharpie on the edge. That's going to tell if we get to the very apex of the edge and see if we're actually really sharpening all the way down. And if this is 1095, it's going to sharpen really easy. So this might not be a real good judge of the stone, which is why I would like to, even if it takes another video, is to see how it does on 154 cm. The stone feels like it's shaving itself off. Yeah, not really impressed with that. That's not even really developing a slurry. That's like shaving the top layer of the stone off. It does seem to be sharpening it. It's removing steel. I don't feel any big flat spots. The stone is relatively flat from what I can see here. Now it's going to dish out and stuff, and I could show you how to do that on the cheap, is how to flatten out your bench stones. Again, if you're into this hobby and into the sharpening side of it as a hobby, because that can be a whole other hobby in itself, you're going to have better gear than this. I'm just trying to help the average guy, maybe the guy who's going hunting, he's found his knife, you know, and just doesn't want to invest too much money into sharpening, but he wants to keep them up, keep them sharp. This is not going to produce your show edge, obviously. But let's see if we can get something that's kind of usable here. You see my edge developing there. I didn't quite pull a burr yet, but you can tell with all that Sharpie removed that we are making progress, and we did get close to that apex. Ooh, there is a little bit of a burr on there. So we've sharpened this side down enough to flip that steel over. So if that burrs along the whole thing, let me do some light strokes and try to get it pretty sharp on this grit, and then we will go to the other. So I'm not even making my micro bevel yet. This is still the same angle, and if you notice, I'm rotating strokes. Do that side, do this side. And I'm not doing it like concentrating on just the belly or just that. Like I'm trying to get the whole edge in one stroke. Just trying to get rid of that burr. You don't absolutely have to remove the whole burr, but it's always a good idea to try to get as sharp as possible on every grit. Does that make sense? Get as sharp as you possibly can on that coarse grit, and then move on to your fine grit, your medium grit, whatever, however you're going to do it. And a lot of people get real crazy, and they'll say, oh, you can't jump from a coarse stone to a strop. Who says you can't? Don't listen to those people. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know why people think that stuff is always definite. There's a million different ways to do things. So even you watching this video, if you know nothing about sharpening, don't think this is the only way to do it. Okay, this is just one way. We're gonna see if it actually works for $2.99. We're getting it pretty sharp there. So what I'm gonna do is flip this over, and we're gonna try this fine, okay? And then we're gonna do some stropping on the MDF. Keep in mind this is a very thin blade, and it's of a little bit of a softer steel, carbon steel. I can't really say that, carbon steel. There's hard carbon steels too, and even 1095 can be hardened really close to what some 154 CM and some others, what you might consider super steel. Depending on your heat treat, 1095 can go pretty hard, but that's for another video. Now I can't really tell through the feedback of this stone if this is much different than that medium grit. They're trying to say that this is fine, unless I've got my stone flipped around wrong. But I feel like this is a little bit finer than that other side that we were using. Let's lock that barrel a little more. Let's rinse this stone off. Some people like to keep that slurry on there. If I'm hogging steel off and I'm using like even a medium or a fine grit, and again, that's relative. What they're saying is fine might still be really coarse. I have no idea what grit size this is. It's definitely not polishing like a mirror or anything. Again, hopefully this video will be for someone who maybe wants to experiment with freehand and see if I can get a pretty good edge off of this. Maybe it'll give you some encouragement to keep on trying. That's why I'm kind of using this really cheap knife here. The Open L is what, maybe $10, $12. This is a 6. Probably should have got the 7. Even for a paring knife, this 6 is just a little bit too small. Alright, I haven't even looked at it. I'm just going by feel so far. And I can tell you, not too shabby. I kind of have us in the shadows, but I think it lights up this stone pretty well, so maybe I'll bring you guys in a little closer when it comes time to show what actual edge we got off of this. We're at 12 minutes though. I think we need to go just a little bit harder. Not pressing harder, I'm just saying I'm going to move a little bit quicker. Take about a normal stroke speed. Again, being careful to go really light on that belly. We will grind it away. And I'm being careful to not flick my wrist too much and round that tip off. Right, so when I'm coming here, this tip should be at about a 90 degree. If this is intersecting the stone, coming across, right, so that's going to be about 90 degrees. As soon as you start to go past that 90 degrees and you go up here and here and here, you're rounding off your tip. You don't want to do that. I'd rather have you not come all the way to the tip, coming at this angle, than twisting it too much and rounding your tip. Does that make sense? Just try to get that edge 90 degrees off of that, and you won't round your tip. Alright, I think it's time to set a micro bevel on this. We're going to rinse this stone one more time. Let's see, yep, got the burr there. Gonna rinse this slurry off this stone. And let's put a micro bevel on it. Let's do some cheap stropping. Let's see what we got. Let's see if it'll cut that paper. See where we're at right now. And again, if you guys have noticed, I've been running pretty much at full speed. So that way we can get through this quicker, but also you can see what a normal full speed sharpening would look like. You know, keep in mind that on diamonds, they cut so much faster, and on a better, higher quality stone, it's going to cut faster. It's just going to be better. But this stone is removing steel, and that's all you need to sharpen. Something to remove steel. And then of course, how fine do you want your edge? Some people, this may be enough. They may want a rough edge. Maybe they're skinning game and you need a rougher, toothier edge for that. I don't know. That might make a good video too. Alright, that was just some strokes getting rid of the burr. Let's go on to the micro bevel. I know that's what I said we were going to do, but I feel like I wanted to hit that main bevel just a few more times. And you see, I leave this very wet. Now I'm gonna, if my main stroke was here, again, we're just gonna go up like a degree or two, and this is very light, almost knife weight only strokes. And not many. We're just beefing up the edge just a little bit. But we don't want to change the performance. We have laid back that angle to get it thin at the edge. If we go too thick, the edge will be very strong and it'll still be pretty sharp, but you're going to lose the cutting ability, which is why you would want a thin edge in the first place. It's definitely better, but it still needs some more right there at the belly. So let's do that. I'm going to add just a little bit more pressure and go full speed, try to blow through this. For a stone review, $2.99. We'll see when the performance, you know, what we do, but it's probably worth your money, even to throw in a bag or something. It's better than sharpening it on a sidewalk, that's for sure. But to recommend this stone, to go out of your way to try to find this stone, no. Get yourself a knife. There's a ton of good stones. Possibly go on blade forums. The forum, go in the sharpening section, and you will find hundreds of good stone recommendations, and they're gonna give you way more info than I can. I like this side of the hobby, but this is only like 15, maybe 20% of the hobby for me personally. I sharpen for performance, you know, for looks if I'm going for that, but mostly I need my knives to cut well. If I send a knife out, I want it to cut well. And they also have to look good, so I really like a mirror polish. But there's been a lot of argument over the years. Is that really the best performing edge? You know, or do you want a little bit of tooth in there? I think that's a personal preference thing. One thing's for sure, a rough toothy edge. Take a look at any Spyderco factory edge, most of them, and they're sharpened on a belt sander. That's still not that good. What is going on? It might be that steel. So let's just move to the strop and see what happens, okay? And again, I'm using a $2 stone, $3 stone. I'm trying to show you where we're at right now. It seems like the shadows are really fighting us. Alright, let's go on to the strop. What we're going to do is try this MDF board. I don't think we're going to get time to try the pine. I don't want to waste your time anyways. So, this is just regular green polishing rouge. It's wax and compound. You just color it on like a crayon. Again, this is just MDF wood. I don't believe, if I have, I haven't done it in a long time. See how well this works. But in theory, it should work pretty good. It's a hard surface that is accepting this stropping compound, this buffing compound. And that's all strop is, really. It's just buffing your edge, and it's trying to get rid of any little burr or wire edge you have. And again, I could make another video on that, because really, once you know the mechanics of what's going on when you're sharpening, or the physics, I guess it would be, you know, maybe one and the same, you can sharpen a knife any way, whether it's a guided system, whether it's freehand. However, you just have to know the mechanics of what's really going on when you're sharpening. And that might be best shown with a pen, a pencil, and a piece of paper. This feels like it's working. Can you see it, like, burnishing that compound? See how it's getting shiny when I've been rubbing the steel on it? So ideally, if this wax-loaded polishing compound, you know, it's got the grit melted inside the wax. If you can just get that on a hard surface, it doesn't really matter if it's leather or not, whatever the surface is, because you're really only buffing it on that polishing compound. Does that make sense? Looking like MDF, really not a bad option for a strop. It's hard, which is what you want. It's got a smooth surface, and it accepts compound, which is all you need. About ready to call this video done. We are not going to get into that Benchmade Griptilian. Going to strop this micro bevel. We're going to take a few swipes at that printer paper, not printer paper, phone book paper. See how well we did. And then I want to zoom you guys in and show you the angle, not the angle, show you the edge quality that we got from extremely cheap supplies. You should be able to find some MDF somewhere. And green polishing compound might run $4 or $5 if you buy it brand new, but I can almost guarantee if you look in your garage, you're gonna find some. If you're younger, your grandpa, your father, somebody's gonna have this. If you're older, you guys probably have a buffing setup or a polishing setup of some sort. Alright, a few more on that micro bevel. Don't want to look like a fool on here. So here's what we're at. It's very messy. Got that compound on there. Just wipe that off. It is wax. Now if you look at this, it's actually turning brown and dark. So it is removing steel, which is all you need to sharpen, right? So how fine are you removing steel? How big of scratches are you putting your blade? As far as using diamonds. Diamonds are going to hog steel off faster, but they do put a little bit deeper scratches in there. Some people don't like to sharpen with diamonds. And I guess it would depend on what steel you're sharpening to, because, oh man, that could be for another video too. Some steels have higher carbide content. So I've heard the argument that very high carbide steels like S110V, that you're not really supposed to use like ceramic stones on them because it can actually pull out the carbides of the edge of the steel. That is not that great. It's sharper than it was, and that is absolutely sure. Just doesn't feel that sharp to me. Let's see what happens. Now you know how bad it was. Looks like I'm gonna need some more work on it. And I'm not that good at cutting paper, so It looks like it needs a running, slicing motion to get in there. It will not just push cut. There's a thin little strip. I don't know. Judge yourself, but you do get what you pay for. And that is really... I might want to strop it maybe for another 5 minutes, okay? If I was on diamonds, I would have been done a long time ago. But for as cheap as we did that, that's really, you could put that in your pocket. I'm just a little bit of a nut, and I'm guessing if you're watching a 25-minute sharpening video, you guys are a little bit of a nut too. So I would strop that micro bevel just a few more times. Maybe for another 5 minutes or so, just cutting. Again, that compound's going to cut pretty slow. Why did I just do that? I had this thing cleaned up so we could zoom in and show you guys what it looks like. Get out of here. Okay? Keep in mind, $2.99 stone, brand new out of the package, never been broke in. Still have a little bit of compound on here. We'll zoom you guys in, show you what we got. Show you what a full speed stroke sharpening session would look like. Again, I believe you could load that compound on that pine board that we had showed you earlier and still get pretty good results. Let's flip this around. Let's put this up here. Let's see what we can see. See how the edge is very consistent all the way through. So when you're freehand sharpening, sometimes you do want to concentrate more on the front or on the flat portion and then roll it up into your belly. Or sometimes, you know, if the whole edge is consistently dull, you might want to go from base to tip, you know, but not too bad. Not quite sure I'd recommend that stone. I think your knives deserve a little bit better than a $2.99 stone. But if you don't have the money, or if you want something that you can just leave in your bag or something, not a bad option. Let me see. Let's see if we can get it focused. It is biting in there. It wants to slip a little bit. I think some more work on that strop could refine that edge. Probably just enough. I don't think it needs any more stone work. And I had one of my good friends ask me, how do you find that angle to sharpen at? Maybe don't use your thumb, but you can take anything that's plastic, like a big pen, and if it'll bite in, right, and when it slips out, so we're here, 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 and then it slips right here, that means that's what angle you want to sharpen at. Because that means you're not hitting the edge. Does that make sense? It's bottoming out on the primary bevel. It's bottoming out on that shoulder. So biting in, biting in, biting in, slips out. That's what angle you want to sharpen, right where it slips out. Okay, so that's how you'd find your angle. If you wanted to match your factory angle or whatever angle you have on there. So there's another little tip for you. Find your angle when you're freehand sharpening. You'll feel it. Alright guys, another 30-minute video, but I don't know. I would recommend this stone for $2.99 if you want to give freehand sharpening a go. Okay, I think it's worth that. For a tool that you're going to depend on and use, you know, I think you're probably better suited to find something a little more higher quality, but not a bad buy, you know. I don't feel cheated at $2.99, so it is what it is. Thanks a lot, guys. See ya.